Let's begin this video with this tweet by Fiona Steil-Antoni from Isle of Man. Spot the difference, #IOM chess. Karjakin versus Dreev and Shirov versus Yu. They both have the same position. This came from an e6 Sicilian. Let's have a look at this game together. Also, breaking news, the arbiters have moved the players away from each other for their own good. Shirov-Yu are now playing in the second hall. Karjakin and Shirov both have white, and Dreev and Yu both have black. The game began e4, c5, knight f3, e6. We have the e6 Sicilian, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6. This move gives white a few possibilities. The capture is played in the game, but knight b5 is another option. After this, white could pick a Shevnikov. After d6, bishop f4, e5, bishop g5, we have this line of the Shevnikov. After knight b5, black could also change it up. He doesn't have to go Shevnikov, he could go bishop b4, and after a3, take d5. White has the bishop pair, but black is ahead in development. In the game, knight takes c6 is the capture played, and after b takes c6, the point is e5. If you don't play e5, black will play d5 to get the center. e5 played, knight d5, knight e4, planning c4, kick the knight, increasing white's space in the center. Black now plays a move which doesn't look right, because after queen c7, this e5 pawn I'm going to defend anyway with f4, but that is the point. Queen b6 means black will control the e3 square. c4, kicking the knight away. You may ask, why not knight e3? Bishop b4 check played in the game. Let's check out knight e3. Queen d3. Knight d6 check is coming soon. Bishop b4 check, let's block, and bishop a6 is now possible. The worst option is knight takes f1, giving white a pleasant advantage after rook takes f1. If you capture, this is just horrible for black. Knight will just come to d6, it's almost positionally lost. After bishop d2, why not bishop a6 first? Threatening bishop takes c4, because white also gets a pleasant endgame. We can get rid of the bishops with a check, the king can come to f2, knight d6 is still a threat, queen takes b2 check, and bishop e2. Rooks are now connected, rook b1 coming shortly. If you keep the knight, rook a b1. The point of knight f5 is to swap queens off now, but this doesn't help black. He will still get a worse endgame, take bishop d3. And a position like this is just so difficult to play. After c4, the main line is bishop b4 check. And here, there's only one good move, beginning with king e2. This is all theory. The first question for those who may not be familiar with this line, why not bishop d2? This is a blunder because of the e3 square. Black can come in with queen e3 check, queen e2. Now we can get rid of the bishops, take, and the point is f4 is hanging, take, knight takes f4. If we go a bit further, you may think knight e4, there's some compensation. If I put my knight on d6, I can castle either side, maybe I'm okay, but a nice retreating move, knight g6, no need to take on g2, knight g6 and the e5 pawn falls. There's no compensation, white will be 2 pawns down. Back to the game, king e2, it looks ridiculous, but it is all theory. Black now decides to counter, because in this position, the c4 pawn is attacking d5, so black strikes with f5. First question, why not bishop a6? A move we see in the Scotch, because the queen is on e2 normally in some Scotch variations. Here we're pinning the pawn to the king. The king continues to get out the way, king f3. And now black's pieces are a bit misplaced. You can play f5, striking, but you could have played f5 before. You can en passant and then get out the way. And white has a nice position here. Let's continue for a bit. You could actually play this really cool move, c5. Now what happens after bishop c5? Knight takes c5. If you go bishop f1, knight a4, yikes. Difficult intermezzo to see. Bishop takes g2, check, take, and white will be up a piece. Now if we consider after king f3, is there another possibility? We can strike in the center, fine. Take, en passant. And after c5, attacking bishop and putting some questions to the other bishop, with queen a5, take, 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 and maybe queen right in the middle of the board, attacking bishop on b4 and the pawn on f6, queen d4. And white has a nice position. Back to the game, f5 is played to hit white's knight, en passant. And after knight takes f6, white chooses to develop with tempo first. Bishop e3. White has choices, knight d6, knight f6 coming up. You don't want to go knight d6 straight away because after bishop takes, queen takes, bishop b7, the pawn is coming to c5. The queen is actually very useful on b6 because it stops the bishop coming out, because the pawn on b2 is hanging. It is very important to play this tempo move. After knight takes f6, white needs to go bishop e3, forcing the queen back to d8. What if queen c7? This makes sense because you are stopping knight d6 check. Knight takes f6 check, take, and the black king is weak. Well, it's only weak if white can attack the black king, and he can with king f2, sidestepping. Queen can come to h5. What if d5? Which looks like it stops it, because queen h5, you can go queen f7. Now we can go rook c1, threatening a capture and opening up a file for the rook. White's king is safer than black's king. Queen h5 is a possibility, even queen a4. Back to the game, queen d8 is played. Knight d6 check, let's get rid of it, and now bishop b7. c5 will come, or else this move is too ugly. g4. Both games have gotten to this position. A novelty on both boards. First question is, why not capture this pawn? c5 was played in the game. Let's have a look at knight takes g4. The purpose of g4 is to deflect the knight from f6, because it would be ideal for black to play knight f6 to e4. Bishop c5 is the point. If you go back knight f6, because it looks like black has just bagged the pawn, knight e4 is coming next. Let's guard this square, and let's activate the king, king d3. And in such a position, white has so many possibilities. The rook can come to e1, bishop to h3, rook to g1, trying to crash through. Black cannot trade queens, and in such a position, it's just so difficult for black to move. After bishop c5, there's a better try with knight h6. This makes a lot of sense, planning knight f5 to kick the queen out. Knowing this, white voluntarily gets out the way with queen e5. What if queen f6, trying to trade queens? White can just continue building, because a queen trade, just because you're pawn down, doesn't mean you have a worse position. We can just go rook g1, knight f5, or you can take the queen, doesn't matter. Bishop h3. All these black squares belong to white. If you take and then g6, you can just take. Dark square domination really, so difficult for black to move. G takes is just a sin, because rook can come to g7, the bishop can come to d6. Even then, the bishop can just stay on c5, just shutting out this bishop. If it comes to a6, white can just go b3 anyway. No need to actually move the bishop on c5. Back to the game, c5 played, rook g1, knight e4, kicking the queen out. Both players found a great plan of kicking the white queen. Queen e5. Both players play this losing move, but how is it losing? And the funny thing is, both players missed the refutation, but it is a very difficult variation to see. After queen e5, the queen looks well centralized. It does not look like a blunder. It turns out castle is the beginning of the refutation. It is understandable why both players missed this, because after bishop g2, it looks like black is in big trouble. Shockingly, no. d6 is the stunning winning move, which looks wrong because queen takes e6 check, taking the pawn with tempo and then coming after the knight. But this is the problem. After king h8, bishop takes e4. Have you lost a piece? No. It turns out the white queen is out of squares. Rook f6 just traps the queen. That is unlucky. Queen takes f6, trying to get as much as you can. But the problem with this is the bishop on b7 and the king on e2 are exposed at the same time with queen takes b2 check. This is the stunning refutation both players missed. It turns out after d6 there is one way for white to get out, is to put the queen on h5. After queen h5, queen b6 and b3 a5. And black has better coordination. The white queen is misplaced on h5. a4 is coming. Maybe a rook can come to the d file, but the a file looks like it's going to open up. and black's king is safer than white's. Let's check out this tweet by Roman Edouard. Here is a tweet by Roman Edouard. Turns out Karjakin and Shirov could both have lost in 20 moves. After 18 castle, bishop g2 d6, queen takes e6 check, king h8, bishop takes e4, rook f6. This is the variation we have seen. That would have been quite an incredible fiasco, #IOMchess. They both played the same blunder. Incredible. Let's go back to the game. Queen h4 played by both Dreev and Yu. Bishop g2, queen takes g4 check. You've bagged a pawn, but you get a worse position. And now we have the deviation on move 20 between these two boards. King d3 was played by Karjakin versus Dreev, but in the game between Shirov and Yu, bishop f3 was played. Let's check out this game first, quickly, because this game ended in a draw. Knight c3 check. Getting the bishop, king d3, queen takes f3, king takes c3, and white still has a great position. Dark square control, kicking the black queen out very soon. Rook g8, let's kick the queen out, bishop takes c5, so many possibilities. Dark square control, rook can come to d1 or rook can come to e3. Castle away, trying to get d5 in. White says let's stop that with bishop d6, bishop a6, b3, king b7, rook to d1, complete control, rook c8, and now white blunders here by losing some control. Rook takes g7 was played. King b2 was better to get out of black's cheapo, black's only threat, I mean. Rook takes g7 doesn't work out because after take, bishop takes c4 works out for black. White got out the way with king b2. First question is what happens if capture? We can capture, and after king b2, queen c2 check, and we drop the rook, or even worse, it might be mate very soon. After king a3, I think rook c3 check is mate. King b4, you can just check. King here, that is mate. If you come up the board, a6 is mate soon. We can go here. King b2, Shirov gets out of the way, but this is too late because black's file is now open. Black actually has chances now to hold this position after bishop e2. Planning queen c2 check, let's stop that. Queen takes d6, Shirov decides to trade bishops in this way. Queen takes d6, rook takes e2, queen d1, queen g2 check, king c6, a4, and the game ended in a draw. Back to the game that was decisive, king d3 played by Karjakin against Dreev, knight f2 check. Both games we see this knight move leading to an opposite bishop position. Bishop takes f2, bishop takes g2. A big problem with this capture is that it is a self-pin. A self-pin capture is horrible. Bishop takes c5, rook c8 is a blunder. It was time to get out of the pin, beginning with queen f3 check. King c2 is possible, and after queen e4 check, if the queens come off, king c3, white retains full control. But after queen f3 check, white can play king d2. It turns out the black queen is not too useful, doesn't have some easy entry squares. If you castle, then we can just grab the pawn, and then maybe it makes sense just to bring the white queen back. Now we can swap, because white has so many passed pawns. After king d2, if you go a6, just trying to keep it, it looks like this is a disaster. Queen d6, coming in, king f7, getting out the way. Notice in this position, black has no good checks. King f7, and it should be mate very soon. Maybe even queen g5. And there are no good checks for black. Bishop takes c5 played in the decisive game, rook c8. And the problem remains because of the self-pin, rook ae1, building pressure, but really just trying to win a piece. King f7, the self-pin leads to a decisive result, rook e2, and the piece drops. Queen f3 check, bishop e3 doesn't help, because if the bishop moves to h3, rook takes g7 check, it'll be mate very soon. Here we can take, king here, queen d6, queen f6, it's over, man. Bishop e3, d6, queen d4, still g2 is hanging, and so is g7. Black tries to stop one of these threats with e5, stopping the attack on g7, but white takes a pawn with tempo, beginning with queen takes a7 check. If king e6, now rook takes g2, and the game is over. Rook takes c4, it doesn't help, because after king takes, rook c8 check, the white king just hides. After queen e4 check, bishop d4, Dreev resigned. he's down too much material. If you try queen d3, planning queen c4, trying to check, then b3 is good enough. Just guarding all the squares. Queen on a7 is guarding b8, and b3 pawn guard c4. Check out one video here and check out another video over here. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel at the same time. Plus hit that bell to get notified each time I release a new video. Thanks for watching. Until next time.